I can't see the clock. We'll start with roll call attendance. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Mylum?
Here.
Councilmember Burnt?
Here.
Councilmember Palmer? Here. Councilmember Little Roberts?
Here.
Councilmember Cavanagh? Councilmember Cavanagh?
Here.
Councilmember Borton?
Here.
Mayor DeVeard?
Here. Item number 2 is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you all rise and join us in the pledge to our flag. Item number 3 is our community invocation. Tonight will be led by Chris Stoker with the Settlers Park Stake of the Church of the Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I would invite you all to join us in the community invocation or take this as an opportunity for a moment of reflection. Thank you for joining us.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful to be able to be gathered here together in this meeting, and we're thankful for the freedoms that we have in this area and in our country to be able to govern ourselves and to have safety and peace. We're grateful for those who keep that peace both abroad and here locally. We pray that Thy Spirit may be here in this meeting to help the leaders of our community as they make decisions and hear from the community things that will affect us. And we are grateful for the good people that are moving to this area and pray that our leaders might be able to manage that growth in a good way. We say this in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
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 Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 4 is adoption of the agenda.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Borton.
there are some items which will be requested to be continued when we get there. They're not yet changed, so I move we adopt the agenda as published. Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda as published. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All ayes. 5, under announcements, we have Dairy Days or Dairy Days Week coming up. We have plenty of events that run from Wednesday to Saturday. First time ever, we have our parade on Saturday. It starts at 6 p.m. And so I invite you all to join us in the community parade. Playing in the plaza, Sparklight Movie Night. I'm going to get used to that. And Main Street Market is on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Playing in the plaza. Hopefully you were able to enjoy that this last Thursday. It was kicked off. So that will be playing every Thursday. Friday is the movie night, and Saturday, Main Street Market. Current opening on the Arts Commission, and applications are due on June 28th. So if you know someone, please have them apply. And we are accepting applicants for Meridian City 101 classes. That's in July. You can check out our city newsletter for that. Anything further under announcements? Okay. Mr. Clerk, any sign-ups under item 6?
Madam Mayor, there were no sign-ins under that item.
Okay, so we'll move right into item 7. 7A is Resolution 19-2149. And this is a resolution appointing Kit Fitzgerald to seat 7 of the Meridian Development Corporation. And I would stand for any questions.
No questions, comment, Madam Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Byrne?
Kit's highly qualified. I think she's going to be a great addition to MDC. She's been there before, so I think it's a great pick for that appointment.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Kavner?
anyone else has any other comments? I'm happy to make a motion. And I'll echo Councilmember Burnt's comments. I had the rare pleasure of serving with Kit on MDC. She's sharp, she's smart, cares about downtown and our community. Great to have her back. So with that, I move we approve resolution number 19-2149.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item Resolution 19-2149 Mr. Clerk, will you please call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Mylum?
Aye.
Councilmember Burnt?
Aye.
Councilmember Palmer? Councilmember Little Roberts?
Aye.
Councilmember Cavanagh? Councilmember Borton?
All ayes, motion carried. Resolution 19-2150 is a resolution appointing Donna, boy, I didn't have to say her last name, so, earlier, and I don't have my glasses on. Is Liz here? Okay. This is to the Historic Preservation Commission. We interviewed Donna for the MDC Commission, and she loves our downtown. She loves the old buildings, and at that point, asked her if she would be interested in the Historical Preservation Commission, which she was. And I bring her name for appointment to serve on the HPC. I would stand for any questions. If not, I would entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Burnt.
I move that we approve resolution number 19-2150, a resolution appointing Donna Lusegnan to the Historic Preservation Commission. I apologize, Donna, if I messed up on your last name. I apologize.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item 7B. Mr. Clerk, will you call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Mylum?
Aye.
Councilmember Burnt?
Aye, sorry.
Councilmember Palmer? Councilmember Little Roberts?
Aye.
Councilmember Cavanagh?
Aye. Sorry.
Councilmember Borton?
Aye.
All ayes. Again, I would ask, is Donna here? I forgot my glasses at home, so I can't see any of the faces out there. I do know that Jennifer is here, so. Item 7C is Resolution 19-2151. This is a resolution appointing Jennifer Bobo to the Meridian Parks and Recreation Commission. And Jennifer brings a background in recreation programs and a real passion that she wants to add to our community, and is ready to roll up her sleeves and be an active participant. I would stand for any questions.
No questions.
Madam Mayor,
Ms. Mylum.
I move that we approve item 7C, resolution number 19-2151, appointing Jennifer Bobo to the Meridian Parks and Recreation Commission.
I have a motion and a second to approve 7C. Mr. Clerk, will you call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Mylum?
Aye.
Councilmember Burnt?
Aye.
Councilmember Cavanagh? I'm sorry, Palmer. Councilmember Little Roberts?
Aye.
Councilmember Cavanagh?
Aye.
Councilmember Borton?
Aye.
All ayes, motion carried. Thank you, Chris. And Jennifer, I would love to have you come up to the podium and introduce yourself and put a face with a name.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm excited to join the committee. I'm excited to see all the different things that I can do to help. I enjoy the recreation activities here in Meridian. I participate in quite a few of them, as many as my schedule will allow. So I'm excited to actually give back and participate in the planning of the different recreation opportunities in the parks and the bike trails and all the things that I enjoy. Is there any other questions?
No, but I thank you. And one of the things that, as you know, the chair of each of the commissions joined me during the interviews. And when I was talking to Jessica about what they really needed on the commission, she wanted a commissioner that participated in the events. And that, of course, is one of the first things that Jennifer mentioned, is she loves going to the events. She talked about a number of them, and instantly it was just like, well, there you go, Jessica. So we appreciate your interest, and we look forward to working with you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Item 7D is a public hearing for H 2019-0059. Before I open this public hearing, for anyone that is new here this evening, our process for our public hearings is that we open the public hearing with staff comments, so they discuss the application. Then the applicant comes forward and has a chance to talk about their application and share any information with council that's pertinent to their proposal at that point, and they have 15 minutes. We open then the public comments, which is 3 minutes each. There is a timer on the podium screen, so you can kind of keep track of what time you have allotted. After the public's comments, council will ask questions of staff, the applicant, and perhaps follow up for any of those that testified that they may want further information from. I would note that there is a public record on all of these applications that council has had a chance in advance to review and use that in how they determine the outcome. With that, I will ask for staff comments as I open the public hearing for 7D.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, council members. This item before you is the West Twisted Creek Street vacation application. The site is located at the intersection of North Black Cat Road and West Twisted Creek Street between Shindon and McMillan in the R8 zoning district. The applicant requests an approval to vacate approximately 0.19 acres of the existing public right-of-way of West Twisted Creek Street, dedicated with Jump Creek Subdivision Number 1. The recorded development agreement approved this roadway as a temporary access until the collector roadway to the north, North Gondola Drive, right here, was constructed. This roadway is currently under construction, and once completed and accepted by ACHD, the temporary access is to be closed and the area converted to a common lot with a pedestrian connection. So to convert this area to a common lot as originally intended, staff is recommending that the applicant process a property boundary adjustment application to combine the vacated right-of-way with one of the adjacent common lots to the north and south. Further, the applicant must submit a landscape plan modification application so that staff can review the landscaping and make sure it meets code. City water and sewer mains are in place in the existing right-of-way, and this application proposes to keep them there. The applicant will be responsible for executing an easement document for these utilities and providing the required access, as well as coordinating with the Public Works Department on any streetlight issues. Since this vacation request is consistent with previous approvals and the recorded development agreement, staff does recommend approval with the conditions listed in the staff report. And with that, staff will stand for any questions.
Council, any questions? See the applicant making his way forward. Thank you for joining us. If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
For the record, Kent Brown, 3161 East Springwood, Meridian, Idaho.
Thanks, Kent.
In the original approval, this was supposed to be a temporary access. And even when we did phase 1, the condition was there that it was supposed to be a temporary access. The Highway District just recently started accepting those, and this was probably one of the very first ones that this happened on. And so our engineer and staff from the city and the Highway District didn't catch, if you will, that provision. And since then, I've done a number of these on other roadways, and they were platted as common area lots with an access easement. Utilities, went through. But in phase 1, when this went in, we really needed 2 access points. And that's the reason that the Highway District was willing to have this be a temporary access point. We, with the final plat for phase 3, approached the Highway District about, well, why do we have to go through this vacation? How about we just do a license agreement? You guys still own it. And there isn't a requirement that it become a common area lot. It really hasn't ever had that condition. It was just that we don't have that access point. But they didn't want to have that on their inventory if they weren't doing something with it. And so with that being said, we're going through the process with the highway district to get back the property that we gave them before. They're actually asking that I show them an exhibit up off where Gondola comes in up there, that the public knows that they're not losing anything by giving this back to us. Even though technically in their code, we gave it to them in the first place, they don't have to do that, but that's what they're doing. And I think you all understand why the highway district and why, as a general rule, we don't want a lot of access points on these major roads. It's to make traffic and allow traffic to move more freely on those roadways. I mean, there's a possibility with the bridge tower development that's on the other side of the road that might even be signaled in the future. Phase 3 is just above where the portion that you can see that is finished currently, and it just it's not a straight connection, but it connects in and comes, and so we're in the process of, as staff said, building that. The difficulty that I have is that the property line adjustment doesn't make it a common area lot. It makes it a parcel. The concern in speaking with staff is that we recognize that it's common area. Well, common area can be in many forms. It doesn't have to be a lot. The only people that are allowed to accept this right away is the HOA that owns owns both of the common areas on either side. Those are the only people that the property can be given back to, is the adjacent property owner. That's again a state law provision. We would suggest that instead of doing the record of survey, that we just do a deed restriction on it, that we recognize it's an agreement, that we recognize that this is common area and that it forever is going to be common area. It would be almost impossible to build anything because there's water and sewer and utilities going through there. It's very unlikely. We're talking about, such a minute piece that really could have anything built on it. It's going to the HOA. We would prefer to do a deed restriction on that, provide you a copy of that, with the understanding that the HOA is going to maintain it. You're going to see a landscape plan, your staff is. So you're going to have that as an example, and then us provide you with a deed restriction on it. To me, that makes a lot more sense. It accomplishes what you're trying to do. By doing the record of survey, it isn't making it a common area lot when you attach it to a common area lot. So making us do that process, you're not getting your value. It's not accomplishing what I think you want to have happen. So that's where we're at. Other than that, we're agreeable with everything else, and I'll stand for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Kent. Council, any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk.
Madam Mayor, there are no sign-ins for this topic.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to provide testimony on this item? Council seeing no public testimony. Any questions for staff or the applicant?
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Borton.
question for staff, maybe to put a fine point on the specific condition of approval that staff proposes that the applicant suggests should be altered. I'm looking at there's really only a couple of them. It does not sound like this is, you guys are on the same page.
Yeah, Councilmember Borton. The property boundary adjustment is kind of the process we have to track what is going to happen with this area, this existing right-of-way. Staff would be open to looking at a deed restriction document submitted with the final plat modification application as the applicant suggests, and doing it that way as well, and seeing if it meets the same goals that we would be looking for with a property boundary adjustment.
Madam Mayor, is there anything about the future maintenance and responsibility and control of that lot that would exist under your proposed boundary adjustment that wouldn't be addressed with what Kent's proposing? If it's not a common lot,
Yeah, Madam Mayor, members of the council, Councilman Borton, I think through that deed restriction, I think Kent can put those parameters as to how that's to be maintained and what the purpose of that lot is. And Ken and I talked about it, so technically, if we really want the applicant to convert this to a common lot, they would need to do a final plat modification, obtain the property from ACHD, and then go through another public meeting process to convert that. We were trying to simplify the process and go through that property boundary adjustment. We felt if that was tied to a common lot, in essence, we would have record of that record or survey, and then we could see that and have the landscape plan modification showing that being improved as a common lot and being owned and maintained. So at this point, as I mentioned to Ken, if they're able to capture that in their deed restriction and they're able to acquire that property and show that as part of their landscape plan modification, then we can at least scan that in with the application, with the landscape plan modification, and show that record, at least the public and future staff members will have that record as to how that lot was to be maintained and owned. I think that's really where it came down to Kevin and I's decision, and really, how do we want to memorialize that this is meant to be a de facto common lot, even though we aren't really making it a common lot. So I think, as Kevin mentioned to you, we're going to have to create easements across that, which in essence negates it as a buildable lot because you can't build over sewer and water easements. But hopefully, I think Ken has a lot of experience with it based on the conversations that we've had, and we feel confident we can move forward as suggested by the applicant with the deed restriction, if the council feels comfortable with that as well.
Madam Mayor, just one final question, and maybe this is a question for Kent, in fact, I'll make it a question for you. You're going to come up and close out anyway. Yeah. So we'll get you up here. I've not seen this before, so what's the snapshot of, if it's not an HOA-owned lot?
It's a parcel that's owned by the HOA.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay, so they'd be taking responsibility for maintaining that landscape in the future, no matter what?
What, I guess, doing what staff is asking is actually easier for me than doing the deed restriction. But trying to do what they want to have happen and protect the city, if that's what we're trying to do, that this is taken care of, the deed restriction does that in a better format. When you see records of survey, for example, and you got two buildable lots, and they built the house in the wrong spot, and they adjust them, those are no longer lots, they're parcels. The lots have gone away because what realistically your parcel line adjustment procedure is an acceptable means of subdividing. You're taking this sliver off and attaching it here, and the city has recognized that this is a subdivision process that doesn't have to go through a plat. And us owning three parcels there, or two lots and a parcel, is, realistically, all the record of survey would do for you is instead of owning two lots and a parcel, now I would own one parcel and a lot that's adjacent in that area. It doesn't change the use of them or protect them. And Bill can tell me I'm all wet, but I feel very confident in what we're doing. The city of Boise, actually, when we do, they allow us to split pieces of property up to 4 times. And they do a notice of buildable parcel. And what it is, it's signed by the landowner and by the city, and it's an agreement that we've done this, we did this record of survey, and we're recognizing it that way. I mean, we could do something similar as a notice of vacation or a notice of common maintenance and ask the mayor to sign it or staff, ask Cameron to sign it. I don't know if Cameron signs a lot, but have Cameron sign it. And my client, and we record it, and then it's memorialized. Is that the right word, Bill? Okay. That we're planning on taking care of it as a common area. But a deed restriction will do the same thing. Thank you.
Well, any other questions for Kent? Okay. If there's no further questions, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Borden.
will we close the public hearing on H 2019-0059?
A motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All ayes.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Borden.
we approve H 2019-0059, inclusive of staff and the applicant's comments, allowing the deed restriction solution to be incorporated as the condition of approval in lieu of the property boundary adjustment in the staff report.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Clerk, will you call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Mylum?
Aye.
Councilmember Burnt?
Aye.
Councilmember Palmer? Councilmember Little Roberts?
Aye.
Councilmember Cavanagh?
Aye.
Councilmember Borden?
Aye.
All ayes. Items 7E and F, the applicant has requested a continuance to July 16th. The applicant did fail to post the site and pay the renoticing fee and is therefore requesting a continuance to the July 16th hearing. Bill, do you have any other comments on this?
Mayor, members of council, I do not. At this time, as you can see, they didn't post the site, so we can't really move forward on this particular application. I would share with council that some discussions with the applicant, and I know we have another request, another application on this agenda, item 7G, but where the applicants asked to withdraw that one, but they're all interrelated, and it sounds like they have a different vision, but they want to allow staff, one, they have to pay the renoticing fee in order to pay us the money, show us the money, right, so that we'll get that notice and get that out to the neighbors in the surrounding area. But two, staff needs more time because of the item, the withdrawal of 7G. We need more time to modify the MDA staff report for you as you take that under advisement, because that will reflect some of the changes that we have as part of our recommendation of the DA modification. So that just buys staff some time to update the staff report with that piece of the puzzle being removed from the development agreement modification, and allows you to act on those 2 applications in a month or so.
Madam Mayor.
Okay, so this is already continued from April, and does July 16th give you enough time to do the review you need to?
Yeah, Mayor, members of the council, that would give us adequate time to go through and strike out underlying format of that staff report once you act on the next item.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cavanagh.
Madam Mayor, no questions. You addressed, Mike. I just wanted to make sure that the requested time from the applicant met the needs of staff. Sounds like it does. We're good. I'm good.
Okay, council, I would need to have a motion to continue both items E and F.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Cavanagh.
I move that we continue item 7E, H-2018-0117 to July 16th, 2019.
I have a motion and a second to continue the public hearing on item 7E to July 16th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All ayes. I have a motion for item 7F.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Kavner.
move we continue item 7F, HS 2018-0118 to July 16th of 2019.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to continue item 7F to July 16th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All ayes. Item G, this is the noted application that has been requested to withdraw, and we would need the city council to acknowledge the withdrawal to close out the record.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Kavner.
I move that the city council accepts the withdrawal of the application for H-2018-0119.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the request from the applicant to withdraw item H 2018-0119. Mr. Clerk, will you call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Mylum?
Aye.
Councilmember Burnt?
Aye.
Councilmember Palmer? Councilmember Little Roberts? Councilmember Cavanagh?
Aye.
Councilmember Borton?
All ayes, motion carried. Item 7H is a public hearing for the impact fee. And who is going to introduce Mr. Lavoie? This was continued. There has been a couple of questions that have been asked since then.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, and appreciate the time tonight. The Impact Fee Advisory Committee, we do not have any additional information to provide you above and beyond what has been provided to you via the consulting company Raftelis Consulting, who provided the impact fee study report to you in May, and also presented to you that study in the month of May. And then last month we presented, or actually this month we presented the public hearing from the Impact Fee Advisory Committee. So at this time, we have no additional information that has not been presented to you from the Impact Fee Advisory Committee. We are here to answer any questions for you that have not been answered to date. But again, we're here for the public hearing to answer any questions that you may have, and we stand as ready for you.
Thank you, Todd. Council, do you have any questions at this point?
Madam Mayor.
Ms. Lowell Roberts.
Madam Mayor and Todd, since it seems like we've had some citizens that have asked the question regarding waiting until the comprehensive plan is complete, is that something that the committee discussed?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Little Roberts, the comprehensive financial plan, and I apologize, the comprehensive, that's ours. The comp plan, and now I go ahead and throw in there the land use study and the budget process. We do not take those into consideration because the budget is a 12-month fiscal period only. The impact fee is a 10-year period. The comp plan we don't take into consideration because that represents, I think, more than 10 years. And so we take the historical data, the data that we have available at our fingertips that shows us the actual data that's occurring in the city, and we use that, or our consultant used the historical data to derive and develop the impact fees study as it was delivered to you in the month of April and May. So we don't take those into consideration. The comp plan changes year to year, month to month, if you have a change. So we don't use that to drive our impact fee study. We use population estimates from Census, Compass, and our growth committee. And then we use that data to make sure that we're calculating the growth projections based on population, and then derive the impact fee study based on that. So those three we don't believe impact the way we develop an impact fee study. We are able to present and develop an impact fee study every year. That is up to us. We do analyze the data every year to make sure that we are meeting the financial needs for the city. So we will adjust it accordingly. Right now we're on a 5-year schedule. we could move it up to a 4, 3, 2, or a 1-year schedule. But we do analyze it based on the actual data that's coming in every year, and we make a decision to propose to you based on that.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Burns?
Madam Mayor, Mr. Lavoy, thank you. Always a pleasure to have you in our presence. Got a question for you. So what you're saying in a year, if you find that this needs to be amended somehow, that would be a possibility?
Madam Mayor, Mr. Burnt, the answer is yes. We, as a committee, meet every quarter. We present to them their quarterly results, and based on that information, we'll always analyze the data and determine whether or not we need to move the 5-year schedule up or keep it at the 5-year schedule. So we talk about this at our quarterly meetings.
Okay, good enough. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Kavner?
Savoy, the council in the past, I think, 36 hours have received a significant amount of requests from our citizens to hold off rendering a decision until the comp plan and the budget's complete. I appreciate the requests coming in from our residents. From a process standpoint, is that doable? If that was a decision the council wanted to support, would you have enough time after that process is complete to be able to hit your October 1 timeframe?
Madam Mayor, Councilman Cavanagh, it all depends when the land use report is done and the comp plan. If it's finished in a timely manner, I guess we would need a couple months to develop the changes within our system. This is changing the way we bill and the way we charge as compared to the current system. So we do need some messaging time to communicate to our building community, and we also need some time to develop the changes in-house. So all depends when your comp plan's done.
And Madam Mayor, and for the benefit of council, that's not necessarily something I'm saying we need to be doing. I think it's important that we get a request from our citizens to at least hear from the people who will be charged with implementing it, even if that's feasible.
And I really think that Todd tried to address that it would not have an influence on the population data and demographics that went into the research on developing the impact fee either. So it's unrelated. Mr. Burns?
Madam Mayor, thank you. Just to clarify, I believe that this comp plan won't be ratified until well after October, if I'm not mistaken. So it would not meet the October 1 deadline for sure, just to state that.
Can you tell me why the committee, I know there's been concern that this needs to be updated and the new impact fees assessed. Why is there an October begin date?
Madam Mayor, we picked an October 1 due date to allow us to message correctly and allow us to make sure we program our internal systems to meet the new charging structure. We are changing the way we apply the rates. If you recall, right now we have a residential and a multifamily. We're now moving to a 4-tiered system, which was presented to you by Raftelis. So we need to do some computer programming, and we want to make sure we have the time to communicate that to our building community, that these are the changes, along with the commercials going from a 1 to a 2-tier system. So we feel that we want to be able to communicate with the building community and internally to make sure we have all the processes, all of our policies updated to meet the new code or ordinance that we improve if it gets approved.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Todd? Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Clerk, will you let us know who signed up to testify?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. First, while you were in executive session, we did receive an email from Sally Reynolds with the list of people that had signed the petitions that you received individually. So I've loaded that in your packet for you to access if you'd like. Also, there are 8 people signed in this evening for this hearing. 2 wish to testify, and the first is Sally Reynolds.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Sally. If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. My name is Sally Reynolds. I reside at 1166 West Bacall Street in Meridian, Idaho. And I very much appreciate the clarification as to why those two items do not play a role in the process of the impact fees. I mean, as a resident, I think that they should, but they don't, so I won't sit here and argue that point with you. I am on the Meridian Steering Committee comp plan right now, and it is my understanding that in the future land use map, there are currently 162 land use changes. Now, how and if that impacts the population and what their trends are, that's not my job. I'm not an expert, but I would be very curious as to how those future land use changes may in fact influence the population. And I think it would be very helpful for the consultant to take a look at the flume, even if it is the first draft that we have, even if it's not the final draft, but to get those 162 land use changes. Furthermore, a part of the ordinance, it does say in Appendix A, the city's adopted future land use map indicates land uses, density, and intensity of development as required by Idaho code. The service area is defined as all land within the city limits of Meridian as modified by time. So, as I understand it, the future land use map does have an impact on how the city develops, and so I think that it should be in there. The other point that I will make is, as far as the 4-tier system goes, while I appreciate that they're really trying to allocate the dollars and the impact fees for what the size of the dwellings are, that seems really broken down, a lot more complicated. Sounds like they're going to have to do a lot more programming for that. And as BCA has stood here and testified, the size of the houses, square footage, are going down. And the demand for that is being driven by millennials and by the aging population and people who don't want to take care of yards and want smaller homes. And while that's great and that's where things are going, we're not going to have those impact fees for those two bottom tiers are actually being decreased. So we're not going to be getting any revenue as a city to fund the public capital needs that we have, because it will actually be decreasing. And with the amount of multifamily and the amount of smaller R15, R40 that's been approved over the last year, I can see that trend being a real problem when it comes time to try and fund these capital improvements. Thank you.
Sally, I guess did you read the impact fee study itself and why they went to this model that they're recommending? The premise is our service levels are dependent on population base.
Right.
And the smaller units generally bear a smaller number of people that reside in them. And so that is why they went that direction. And so I just wanted to make sure that was noted.
Okay, thanks. And I did note that as far as the square footage with the number of bedrooms times the amount of people, the multipliers and all of that. And so I understood how that worked. I guess the question was 3 bedrooms and below accounted for something like almost 70% of all of the dwellings. And so it would seem to make more sense to me to go ahead and still only have 2 tiers, the ones that are 3 bedrooms and below, and then those that are above. Although, I mean, but I see they're trying to get down to detail, but yes.
Okay, thank
you.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Kavner.
a question for you. I assume, I know you pretty well, you're a great organizer and you get people to be very passionate about issues about carrying on our community, and I applaud you for that. So I'm going to make an assumption that you helped to kind of coordinate to have some people reach out to us, which I also appreciate. Based on what you've heard tonight from staff, and at least maybe some encouragement from council to review this, maybe on a more frequent basis than we have in the past, do you feel that addresses some of the concerns that you and your fellow neighbors were voicing in the letter that you sent to us?
I think that it certainly does. Sorry, Madam Mayor and Councilman Member Kavner. I certainly do believe that it answers why the comprehensive plan and the flume aren't included in the process, and I will go ahead and communicate that to the public. I think overall there's a feeling of, why why hasn't these been changed in the last 5 years? There's not an understanding of the state code. And I think it would even help to know that they are monitoring it every single quarter, because this is something that the residents are concerned about. So I am happy to disseminate any information that you have, and if the mayor's office and the communication would like to let us know a little bit more about the process. I mean, there are some residents that don't even understand that it's just capital improvements. So they hear it and they think we need more infrastructure, and it's not all the way across the board. So there's definitely some education that needs to be done, and I'm happy to help with that.
Yeah, and it might be worth noting that the impact fee committee did come to council a couple of years ago and recommended increasing the fees. And so they do monitor it, and as Todd mentioned, it's on a quarterly basis that we can definitely keep in touch with how many permits are coming in, what the sizes are, and if we feel that we're collecting at the level we need to.
Great. Thank you so much, Madam
Thank
Mayor.
you.
Council, thank you.
Sally.
Madam Mayor, the other sign-in was Christy Herwey.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Christine Herwey. I live at 2373 East Taconic Drive in Meridian, Idaho 83642.
Thank you.
I do live in Black Rock. I'm here on behalf of the Southern Rim Coalition. Our typical speaker is out of town, so I am helping along with that. I probably don't have a lot to add, but I do want to say that we've heard over the last several years when we come to council meetings, we have lots of developers up here indicating that they are looking to build smaller lots, smaller houses. We're definitely seeing that all around us, even though we're advocating for larger. So we're concerned that the numbers that they use for the 2014 and 2018 data sets for the proposed ordinance and the projections, we're concerned that those are, in our feeling, not adequate. We have seen in Meridian, especially if you have any kids in schools, we have seen a boom that just seems like it will not stop. And we're concerned that the proposal for the impact fee schedule, as Sally has indicated, the bulk of these are going to be smaller houses, we feel, and that is where the biggest cut has been. And so we're concerned that that is not going to long-term be able to adequately, what's the word I'm looking for, fund city operations. We're already having troubles with with our growth. We're already having troubles with schools and being able to build them fast enough, and roads for kids and families to be on. And so we're concerned that the calculations seem to be based on the 2501 square foot to 3200 square foot, where we're feeling like we're going to be seeing quite a few more smaller dwellings. And that is where the biggest increase. We also have seen that the impact fees for builders during the boom were not adequately realized. So the fee that we thought that they were going to be paying, they weren't paying the full fee. And so we're wondering, as the gentleman that was speaking before is saying, that we can look at these in a year, and we could tweak them if need be. Those are my words, but we're concerned that would that be done? And how often would that be done? It just doesn't seem, I did read the report, and it's very detailed for every kind of service that would possibly need some kind of attention. We're also feeling, like many of you have heard, that maybe the cart's before the horse, and it would be great if we could wait till the comp plan and the flume and the budget were passed, and we could look at what that means, and then we could look at the impact fees. We're not quite sure why there might be such a rush, and if we could wait, that's what we would ask for.
Thank you, Christine. We appreciate you being here. I'm thrilled that we have citizens that care about our impact fees. for years, we haven't had very many people even weigh in or feel that they had a voice in the impact fees. And our impact fee committee certainly meets quarterly, and you can definitely sit in and listen to the discussion. Impact fees are not easy to calculate and understand, and that is why we have a consultant that helps us pull all the information together to make sure we follow the state code and that we're thoughtful in the method that we choose to bring forward for council's consideration. Mr. Clerk, any further sign-ups?
Madam Mayor, of the 8 that signed in, those are the only 2 that indicated they wish to testify.
Okay. This is a public hearing. I see Denise coming forward.
Hello, Mayor Tammy and council.
Good evening.
Denise Hansen Lefevre, or Denise Lefevre, 6706 North Salvia Way. I'm going to restrict what I'm going to talk about just to what we ended with last time. So the concern that I have is at the last meeting, we talked about dwelling units not being incorporated in the impact fee ordinance as discussed at the last meeting. We talked about incorporating it. I reviewed the ordinance that's on file, and I don't see where it's incorporated. I do see climate control floor area. If I was a developer, I'd probably hire a lawyer and say, hey, the whole entire building is climate controlled, therefore I want to have it done at a cap, and not, dwelling unit. But I just don't see where it's incorporated, and that really concerns me. So can we put up the big one first, Bill or Chris? Yeah. What I did is I went to your building permits that are on file, and first page on that one. I'm not sure how to get to it. So I went to the building permit files, and I went back through and inserted actually 3 columns. I figured out the average square footage for new homes in yellow. I figured out right here that we have the units of square footage for multifamily and the buildings for square footage. And then I applied the rates to those. We can't see the columns on that. Is there a way to move it? Okay, it's actually 2 pages.
Do you have that? I can bring it up over here if you have it with you still.
Over at the top.
That's okay, just move to the other one. So what I did is this whole entire sheet of the building permits is in a lot of detail. So all I did was to make it easier to talk about, I lifted the totals off of that sheet and placed them on a separate sheet that's easier to view. And with what I'm looking at here is this is by fiscal year, because that's how building permits are done, is by fiscal year. And what I did is I did that simple calculation of average square foot for new homes, and I can see by the building permits that they're trending down. And what I'm seeing over here with the multifamilies, if we were just looking at the structure of a multifamily, and I apply the cap rate of $3,433, I come up with this year alone, which is only through April 30th, of $195,681. And then if I go back and I look at it and say, hey, the minimum that we're going to look at by unit is 1,000 square feet, and we're going to apply that rate, you can see that the number increases to $560,000. That's a big difference in calculations. And if you apply that to the year before, the difference between looking at a multifamily structure opposed to a door, those are some big numbers. It's a big calculation. So I'm very, very concerned about the calculation. I'm also concerned about doing the allocation recovery calculation based on 2,501 through 3,200 as the allocation recovery basis, because I don't feel that's the way we're trending. Then that brings me to the questions which Todd can answer, is how do you incorporate multifamily into the calculation? Do you calculate it as a whole building? That trends the number up. Do you calculate it one door at a time or one dwelling unit at a time? That drives the number down. So either way, up, down, either way you look at it, I don't feel that the allocation method is fair. But
Denise,
in closing,
I'm
going to close. That's what I'm doing right now.
Denise, I have a question for you. What would be your continued opinion in
I think we need to take a serious look at the allocation recovery, and we need to take a serious look at multifamily, and I would break them out
And then I would go back and look at, does it make sense to have one simple rate? Or do you tier the rates? But I would definitely treat multifamily and the new houses separately. But I would go take one more run around it and run some numbers and do some calculations and grind on the recovery. What happens if we get the answer wrong? What does that do to my recoveries? I don't want to see the shift go to the tax burden to the residents.
Madam Mayor,
I
follow-up?
want to keep it balanced and fair.
So, to confirm what you're saying, Denise, your concern is mostly with the 1,000 square foot mark and below, not necessarily the next level or even the next level above that. It's the multi-family square footage amount that you're talking about.
I have 3 concerns.
Okay, sir.
I have, my one concern is the dwelling units is, from what I see, is not incorporated as what was promised at the last city council meeting, that it's not incorporated within this ordinance. 2, I'm concerned about the allocation recovery and the impact that the multifamily has on that calculation and how it is incorporated. And 3, I'm concerned about the trending of, instead of basing on 2014 to 2018 numbers, that we're trending down already on the square footage of homes. So those are the 3 things that I'm concerned about. And 2 of them wrap around the one thing that I'm concerned about, the allocation of the recovery and the multifamily, how they pay. But we were promised a dwelling unit incorporation into this, and I'm very concerned that that definition hasn't been properly incorporated within this. And like I said, if I were representing the developers as a CFO, I'd want to call my lawyer and say, hey, could we go back and take a look at what this says, controlled square footage? Can we take a look at the whole entire building? Because I really like that cap rate. That's like awesome, if you're a developer and you're looking at the bottom line. But it's not so great if you're a citizen. So, balance.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Neri.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, I can answer the dwelling unit question that Ms. LaFever's brought up. That was in the definition code that you changed last week. So it's in the code now, so it has been amended. It's been the definition in the code.
I'm concerned that it's not in this ordinance to drive that calculation.
It's in the entire section of the ordinance regarding
I
impact
would
fees.
much rather see it
Okay,
so there's
can
no
I,
confusions
like-
incorporated. So I disagree with that
Okay.
very strongly.
Any other questions for Denise?
Okay.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone else who wishes to provide testimony? Okay. Any of our impact fee members care to comment? And wrap up.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Borton.
Mr. Lavoy addressed the multifamily
Yes.
question.
Yeah. Could it be possible to?
Just to, since it was raised, Madam Mayor, just describe how a multifamily project would utilize this proposed new impact fee schedule. How it would be applied to that type of project.
Madam Mayor, Councilman Borton, within the ordinance, there is a statement that describes how multifamily will be calculated. I'll sum it up, but if we need the official verbiage, we can ask Bill to read it off to you. But what it is, total square footage of the building for a multi-unit complex, we'll ask the developer how many dwelling units exist within that dwelling unit. We'll take the average that comes out to. So let's say you have 100 square feet total building, you have 10 units, that's 10 square feet per unit. You then look at the schedule and you pay.
0.
In this case, it's 0, yes. You did good, Genesis. But that's how it would be. It's a mathematical calculation of asking how many units exist within the dwelling or in the actual structure. I think we used building structure within the ordinance, and then we just divide it, and then you use the scale to figure out what the average size is. So if the average size of all the dwelling units is 1,200 square feet. You multiply that rate, which in this case is $1,309 times so many units, and that's your impact fee revenue or impact fee cost. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Again,
Mayor.
it's more clear, and we did a better job in the ordinance, sorry.
Ms. Mylum.
It's really clear to me, but I just want to make sure that there would be no possible way for a developer to slide something through. I'm not saying that they would, but that's kind of what, what the worry seems to be, and using it all as one building, pay one code, so.
Madam Mayor, Councilman Malam, again, we worked with legal, we worked with the building department to construct some language that we felt that would protect us. Again, Mr. Neri, if you have any comments on that, at the end of the day, we think we have it covered.
So, Madam Mayor, members of the council, if you look at the table, right, so housing unit and dwelling unit are the same thing, and our code defines dwelling unit as the individual units in the building. So, again, as we've talked about, I mean, it's the entire ordinance, it's not just the table. That's the only portion you're talking and changing, but the entire ordinance drives, the fee is calculated based on the square footage of the residential units, and it's based on the average in the definition. So I don't think there's a way, I don't know what somebody could do to fly under the radar. I don't know what that means. So yeah, I think it's clear. Mr. Baird's the expert. He thinks it's clear. The building department thought it was clear. If you're concerned, we can certainly try a different approach, but we think it's clear enough, and so I don't know what else to do to write it differently.
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Burnt.
Two questions. First question is, do we know what the average square footage of a multifamily unit is in our city? Was that ever calculated or brought up? I mean, roughly?
Madam Mayor and Mr. Byrne, I don't have that information. That information was collected by the professional consultant, Raftellus Consulting. They're the ones who collected the information from Ada County Assessor and our community development team. But I don't have it off the top of my head what the average size of a multifamily unit is. I apologize.
Is a Raftellus representative here this evening?
Mr. Byrne, Raftellus, Dwayne Guthrie, our professional representative, he's not here today.
Okay.
He was here the last month for the presentation.
Right.
Sorry.
Second question, and I just want to confirm this. Let's just hypothetically say that, we find out that, someone in the development community is maybe skirting the system maybe to a certain degree and is able to somehow circumvent the process. I mean, we're still in a position, and I'm like City Councilwoman Janet, Ms. Milo, I don't believe that would ever happen. I have no reason to believe that would happen. But are we in a position where we can say, hey, let's look at this and redo it? Before 5 years?
Mr. Burr, we can actually do another study tomorrow. We can do as many studies as we feel fit. There is no state code that states you can't do it more than once every week. You have to do it at least once every 5 years. So it's really up to us. If we ever feel uncomfortable, we can present to you a request to open the study and conduct the analysis using a consultant again.
Follow, just one comment, and I don't say that for myself because I don't feel that way, but there are, we like council member Kevin did say we received a lot of emails, and that seems to be like the major concern, these lesser square footage units. And so I just wanted to create some levity and say, hey, there is a way in which we can, verify and check that we're collecting what we need to collect. So it sounds like we're in time.
I would say that if you look at it, and early on when we did this extensive land use map in the early 2000s, we looked at what the potential density of population would be per square mile. And if you look at an R15 where you would consider 15 units per acre versus an R2 or an R4, you're looking at a collection per square mile of, for the R15 of 11,715. If you consider an R4 at the size of 1,500 square foot or the 2,500 square foot, you're collecting per square mile 8,400 or down to 7,100. So you do collect a higher amount on the higher or the smaller units and the higher densities. So you are considering that the smaller units and more units. I just did some math. Any other questions for Todd?
Thanks, Todd.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor. I guess
Ms. Milo.
Todd. Sorry. So, since this has been an issue, I think, at least for myself, and as far as the timing goes, because I understand the concerns. When I first read the report, I was thinking that there was not nearly enough for police and fire being collected. I understand it's only for capital, but I'm not an expert in the field. You guys have a team, you work together all year round, for year after year. You hired a consultant, an expert in this field. So I'm in the field that I'm trusting the process, trusting you and the experts, and I appreciate that. My question, I guess, would be, since we are going through this comp plan change and everything, maybe after another, you meet quarterly, so another maybe quarter, 2 quarters, give an update to the council on where you're at and where things are, even if it's hunky-dory or, hey, we might be off a little. I think that would be great.
I think it would be good to ask the Impact Fee Committee to give either a semi-annual or an annual report, and certainly can. Even with the new land use map, you're not going to see instant change. We have pipeline lots that are yet to be filled, and they are not at those smaller densities, or smaller homes. I think it is important to keep on top of it and to have more frequent reporting from the committee. And the committee can, they already report back to the committee for their discussion. It's very easy to bring that discussion back to council.
Thank you.
And you're right, this has been only when we update or the committee comes back and says, we're not charging enough, we need to get in front of council.
I think updates would be good.
So if you, I don't know what frequency council would like, but I think more than 5-year or 2 to 3.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Kavner.
I agree. I think almost a combination. It would be great after this is implemented, 6 months later, we have somebody come back. But when we started this process, and I don't know if anyone's changed their mind, I floated the idea of having an annual update to look at the CPI, and if we need to make any small changes along the way on an annual basis. That's something, I guess, Todd, I'd ask you to take back to the committee to gauge their feedback. I think having you guys come back on an annual basis just for an update more than anything, but I would also like to see that if there's any substantive changes, that you guys bring that along with any fee changes based on the CPI.
Madam Mayor, Councilman Kavner, we can definitely bring back an annual report. Again, we deliver to you an annual financial update, but it's not an official presentation from the team. We'll just find a representative to present to you the annual results for you, and most likely occur probably in the month of February. That's when we have our audited financials completed, and that'll show you the true representation of the fiscal year activities. I don't think that'll be a problem at all.
Madam Mayor, if I can, I just, for the benefit of everybody in the room, I know you know this, I know the council knows this, this Impact Fee Committee is citizen-based. And I think that we have so many in our community that really thrive on engaging and participating. Councilmember Burnt is a previous participant in that committee. And so this is really the council relying on our citizens to help drive that conversation while using expert analysis. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other final remarks?
No final remarks. I think you've stated it. The professional report that was conducted by Raftellus Consulting, we've supported their information. The Impact Fee Advisory Committee voted unanimously to support the information that Raftellus developed for you. We, as the Finance Department legal team, are administrators of the Impact Fee Committee. So we stand with in support of the Impact Fee Advisory Committee and their support of the Raftellus product that they delivered to you in May. So again, we appreciate the support that you have for it, and hopefully approve what the full cost recovery method that impact fee study has presented to you. So I appreciate it.
Thank you, Todd. Okay. Mr. Borton.
Madam Mayor, I move we close the public hearing on item 7H.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All ayes.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Borton.
I think it's been extremely helpful having these additional hearings and getting this additional information from the development community and the public, and having some additional time for dialogue amongst the seven of us. I think it's provided some better vetting and also some better explanation as to what this process entails every time we do it. The remarks that each organization has stated, and this seems to capture, is that the new growth created capital costs be recovered through this mechanism. So growth pays for itself, allowing our city to maintain this specific level of service with our police, fire, and parks. The analysis that was done to generate these figures seems to do that. I think the explanation that's come from these meetings describing the technical disconnect between the comp plan and our budget and impact fees is probably a discussion we'll have every time we do this. It's a good one, though. I think it's helpful for the public as well as all of us to remain aware of that. I appreciate what we've seen from the development community, that acknowledgement that growth should pay for itself, and the legislature's created this mechanism to allow it to happen. I like the proposal in several ways, understanding it's using a tool to keep these costs away from our existing taxpayers. But having the additional layers in the residential based on the square footage gives it an opportunity to be more fair. And it allows it to be a little more flexible and capture maybe a higher fee if there's larger structures that get built going forward, or smaller structures going forward. It doesn't over-collect fees, so I think that's a positive as well. So hats off to the committee and the analysis. I think it's definitely supported by Idaho Code. I think the explanation did a fantastic job in trying to describe to the public the basis behind it. I'm not supportive of delaying it. I think the analysis supports doing it now, effective in October 1. I think it just gives us the soonest date to collect a more accurate fee to capture our capital improvement plan. So I'm supportive of that, and I am extremely supportive of a lot of the comments that I've heard, that this, in light of the rate of growth that our community has, that we should certainly look at this and almost just assume we will do this again in 2 years. The reports are great, wonderful data, but our city very well may pivot in a way that members of the public have described. It may actually have a lot of small home construction that necessitates looking at it again. But we should do this in 2 years. And just assume it's going to happen. Todd, assume it's going to happen. It's not part of the ordinance, but it's probably the most prudent way to ensure any concern from the public gets addressed quick, so we can pivot if necessary. So I'm supportive of the ordinance as presented in light of all of that discussion. I appreciate the input from everybody. I think it's a good solution all in all.
Thank you, Mr. Borton.
There's a whole lot of thought, but it's been good discussion.
Nothing more to add. That was perfect.
Any other comments?
Mr.
Wouldn't summarize my feelings for the most part.
Beautiful.
Okay. If there's nothing further, I'll move to item 8A, which is the third reading of Ordinance 19-1827. Mr. Clerk, will you please read this by title?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is an ordinance to amend the municipal code of the City of Meridian, County of Ada, State of Idaho, amending Title 10, Chapter 7, Section 12E2, Meridian City Code, known as the Meridian Impact Fee Ordinance Fee Schedule, to provide for an amendment to the Police, Fire, and Parks and Recreation Impact Fee Schedules and providing an effective date.
Thank you. You've heard this ordinance read by title. Is there anyone who would like to hear it read in its entirety? Okay, Council.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Borton.
move we approve ordinance number 19-1827.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 19-827. Any discussion? Mr. Clerk, will you call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Mylum?
Aye.
Councilmember Burnt?
Aye.
Councilmember Palmer?
No.
Councilmember Little Roberts?
Aye.
Councilmember Cavanagh?
Aye.
Councilmember Borton?
Aye.
All ayes, motion carried. I know we have one of our citizen representatives here.
Speech, sorry.
Yeah. I know you put a lot of time and due diligence to this, and I hope to all of you who have spent countless hours on the impact fee. I know you've heard a lot of the testimony. I'm sure you've had an opportunity to read some of the public record. I know that will be part of the discussions in the next quarterly meeting, but I want to thank you for the time and the attention to detail that you've put in this. This was a very thorough study. It's the best that we have seen. I think a lot of work was put into it. So just on behalf of myself and council, thank you. I know there's a real effort to make sure that growth does pay its share, and we appreciate your attention to that. So thank you. Okay, anything under item 9?
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Borton.
I'm just sort of hijacking this topic. Not really a future meeting topic, but one of our ongoing tasks as council is to use this time between now and the 8th-ish to get budget comments to our finance department. So they've got time to vet them, get them back out, so there's no surprises on the 8th. So I've not seen stuff come out. I know Jenny compiles and sends it out, which is fantastic. So the sooner anybody, if you have questions, can get that process started this month, the better. The future meeting topic is July 8th. But boy, it's much more productive for all of us to have all of that vetted, whatever it is, before the 8th. So get some comments to finance if you could, please, and that future meeting will go wonderfully. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, if there's nothing further, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam Mayor,
Ms. Meyer.
move that we adjourn this fine meeting.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All ayes.